What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. I apologize for that quick introduction there. That was a little bit wrong. I guess I must have clicked the wrong thing on my encoder here for the wrong scene. But anyway, I guess that's really neither here nor there. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you guys for taking the time to come by and stop by my channel and just maybe listen to me flapping my gums for about an hour or so. And thank you all so much for being here. If this is your first time here, please make sure you subscribe, click the little bell, and all of that good stuff. I talk a lot about comics, movies, and even music on occasion. And, I do appreciate you guys being here. And again, I have been trying to make this a morning show, and if you were here yesterday, you've seen that I was a little bit behind. I had some technical difficulties, I guess you could say, and I do appreciate all the people that tuned in yesterday and waited and were patient with me throughout, I guess you could say, throughout that process. I do appreciate you all being here. And again, thank you all so much. And again, I want to say thank you to all my Patreon supporters out there who, kind of help make all of this possible. You guys are absolutely awesome. Definitely some good people out there, and I do appreciate the support, and I do my best to hopefully make videos that I want to make and hopefully cater to some of the things that you guys like. And that's something that I definitely need here on the channel, is that I need more than anything, in case you guys have listened to me on any of my other live chats before, is one of the most important things about these live videos is you, the viewer. It is, you guys are, the ones here watching, you guys are the ones here supporting, and, I greatly value your input. And, if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about on these videos, as far as these movies and things like that, please let me know. You can reach out to me on Twitter, Facebook, and even Instagram, or you can be here on the live videos and take part in the chat. You guys are what make this all possible. Mads Mama Bear, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for being here. Always supportive you are. And I greatly appreciate that. And again, like I said, if you guys have any feedback or anything that you guys would like me to discuss, please let me know. Like I said, through my Twitter, Facebook, or even Instagram. Now, I do have to say there are some things that I am not so great at these days, and that is television shows. I used to watch a lot of them when I was a child, and even when I was younger, in my younger years, I guess you could say, I used to sit there and, I'd watch a regular amount of TV shows, I guess, not a whole lot, but these days, I don't really watch them. You guys know I'm a pretty big Marvel fan, and you can go back and watch plenty of my videos where I'll tell you I don't really watch even like the Netflix Marvel shows. I think for the most part, I've watched most of them, maybe not all of the seasons. But again, it's just not something I'm really that into. But I know it's something I probably need to change. In case you guys have been here before and heard me talk about, there's one thing that I think is important out there in the movie industry, and that is up-and-coming actors. It seems like a lot of the great actors these days are not necessarily dropping like flies, but it seems like we've lost a lot of the greats out there. You know what I mean? And there's, a lot of people out there who talk about the film industry these days and just think, like there's no real talent out there. People, and then yet we've got actors, great young actors out there who are trying to make their way into Hollywood or make a name for themselves, or maybe become the next big name. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As you can go back and look throughout the rich history of Hollywood and see that television and TV shows, that's kind of how a lot of people got their start in the movie industry. So it's definitely something to keep your eye out on. And then sometimes I hear people talking about just things like, oh, there aren't any of these great actors anymore like we used to have, and all of these things. And and the thing is when it comes to that, you got to take into account that all of these actors have to come from somewhere. I see so many people, just like a perfect example is Robert Pattinson, the guy being cast as the new Batman. Back in the day, he was in those Twilight movies, and I'm sure he's done plenty of work before that as well. And I just don't really know this actor enough to know. But the one important thing I always have to say is, there's been a lot of pushback and everything with him becoming the new Batman. People out there, making sense of it or not making sense of it, trying to rationalize the different things, the facets that go into this. Now, the one thing that I will say is, the bad thing when it comes to these things, is for us as film fans, or even probably even like casting directors in general, producers, movie studios, and things like that, is the fact that a lot of these people have to get their start somewhere, and then maybe they get typecast, or maybe people only start to see them in a certain way. And unfortunately, that's just something that happens in our world. It's there's really not much that we can do about that. Whether you're just a viewer, whether you are the actor or the studio, it's that perception that's out there, that's already out there about you. So people already have, I wouldn't say misconceptions about you, but they already have those thoughts and everything out there. So, sometimes you just can't win for losing. And that's just something sad out there about the industry. He was Cedric Diggory, and yeah, he was in the Harry Potter as well. And I think that's probably the only one thing I've really ever seen him in. I never actually watched any of those Twilight films or anything like that. So, when all these people have these reservations about him becoming the new Batman, I don't have them. Like, I'm aware that he was in those movies, but again, for me, it's something that it's not really that important to him being cast in a role, because I feel, like I said, is all these people have to come from somewhere. They have to they have to get their footing in the industry somewhere. They have to get their name out there somehow. And if you're a child actor, that's how and even in adult actors, that's how they get into it. Is maybe they get into a daytime drama, or an evening sitcom or something like that, and kind of grow their name and their influence through there. It's really no different than a lot of people have to do on YouTube and things like that as well. You have to get your name out there. You have to get people knowing who you are before people recognize you, and they start to want you and seek you out for these roles. But again, it still comes down to, you have to start somewhere, and it just seems like there's so many people out there that want to rule out certain people, maybe for a role they've done, maybe they don't like a role they did, or anything like that. People kind of get typecast, and while that can be a good thing, it can also be a very bad thing. And like I said, but the people's perception, perception is reality for a lot of people. How you perceive things and how you see things. Just it could be different from the reality of what's really going on. You know what I mean? So, and that's something we see oftentimes in Hollywood, where maybe we're used to seeing like a certain actor in a certain role, and you're kind of like, oh, like, I bet you that's how this person is. Like, I think a perfect person I can think of that is an actor like Danny McBride. Okay, if you ever watch a Danny McBride movie, or even anything that he's in, or even like some of the TV shows like Eastbound and Down and all these kinds of things, you see that a guy like Danny McBride, he is just he's so great at what he does. He seems like this perfect kind of arrogant, just like an over the top arrogant prick. In a lot of the movies, he just seems out there and over the top, a little too extreme. And if you watch any number of his films, like I said, or even TV shows, he kind of plays like that same role. He seems like the same thing in a lot of these roles. And not to say that he can't act or anything like that, but it starts to make you wonder, like, is that how he is in real life? Because that's, he's just so great at playing that part. And there are many great actors out there who have kind of always brought their own persona to these movies, and it makes you wonder sometimes, like, is that really who they are? Is that their persona, or is that just our perception of who they are? And it just makes it seem like they're so good at it. Because for all I know, Danny McBride is probably like the nicest guy out there in the world, and I've certainly seen instances where people have gone out there and said, oh yeah, like, he's a really nice guy and everything. And you hear this about a lot of people, like, we always want to try to build people up. We're not always trying to tear people down, you know what I mean? And so I think that's one thing that goes, especially amongst peers and everything, if they're in the industry, a lot of times you don't really necessarily want to say something bad, because maybe even if you want to, because maybe it makes that person look bad, but a lot of times it might look bad on yourself. So I think it's a perfect example of things out there like that. Like these actors and their personalities and the people they portray on TV. Is that really what they are like in real life? And that's where the perception versus the reality really comes into play. Everyone is against Batfleck. Withholding judgment, I find, is usually the best call, and that's absolutely true. I agree with you 100% there. I agree, because Batfleck, to me, he's one of my favorite Batman. I actually liked the Ben Affleck Batman, and I was talking about this the other day. I really wish we could have got to see his movie and seen more of him in the role. There was one thing I noticed. So one of my friends had made a comment about before, and that was seeing his dimpled chin in that mask, and he just didn't like it. And I'm like, I guess I could get that. I could get how somebody would feel like that. But me, I remember seeing him, like even in God, was it Batman versus Superman, where he's sitting there talking to Alfred, and then they go through the little montage where he's sitting there working out and like he's all buff, and I'm like, dude, like this dude is an excellent Batman. I like him as Batman. Is he better than the Christian Bale Batman? Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say. It's a matter of personal preference. Like if you know me, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I think they're great movies, but again, they're not some of my favorites. And there's some of those movies out there that are a little bit different. They are based on these comic book characters and things like that. But if you watch it, and if you know the Nolans and Christopher Nolan and the movies he makes, they make more like kind of psychological thrillers, and that's almost seems like what they made the Dark Knight trilogy into. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because really that's kind of the whole basis of the Batman character within the comics and everything. I mean, a lot of times it is a psychological thriller, and and so I think they really did a lot to bring that to the screen. So again, but is he better? It's really hard to say, because I think Ben Affleck could have been a better Batman, and a lot of that comes down to the like the roles, the directors, the producers, the studios, and things like that. Because there's still one thing I'll tell you out there. If you ask me anytime, I'll still tell you anytime that Jack Nicholson is the best Joker that we've had. Okay, now the thing is I say that with the intention of meaning that he could go out there, because a lot of people talk about Heath Ledger's Joker, and Heath Ledger did a good Joker. But the thing is okay, Heath Ledger playing in the 1989 Batman series, would it have worked? Would he have done as good of a job? And then you look at Jack Nicholson. If you take and put him into the Nolan series, into the Dark Knight, does he play that role better? And I think the answer is actually yes. I mean, I think he is the better actor. I think he brings more to the role. I think just a lot of the nuances that Jack Nicholson I mean, Jack Nicholson is hands down a better actor. And I think that, and then that's why I say, there's so many arguments to be made when it comes to those things like that. But I think that Jack Nicholson is the best Joker that we've ever had and probably will have, as far as the cinematic universes and movies and things like that, because there are certainly arguments to be made for Will, what is it, Will Arnett, yeah, that played the Lego Batman. He's one of my favorite Batmans. And also obviously and obviously, oh man, why am I forgetting Mark Hamill's name all of a sudden? Obviously there's Mark Hamill out there, who's done an excellent job as well, portraying the Joker. And obviously, what's his name, portraying Batman. But there's just all these different, these differences that people could go out there and split hairs over all day long, really, if you think about it. But again, it's just all these different things that people bring to their roles. And again, we do have to, you can even see when you go back and trace some of these other people back to their acting roots, that they all came up. Not most of them didn't even just necessarily come up in movies. A lot of them did other things as well, and that's something that I think Hollywood definitely values when they're casting for their movies. Is they want not just people who are great for roles, but talented people who have more than Can you do more than just act? Most of these actors spend a lot of time and have spent lots of time in their past developing other things, like being musical artists, learning to play instruments or just other talents they might have, being dancers, being just into different things like that. Like look at Tom Holland. He was actually, he's an excellent Spider-Man now, but even before, he was cast as Billy Elliot in some stage plays in his homeland. So he went around touring doing that. So again, we always have to take these kinds of things into consideration. I wanted to see Riddler from the Nolan perspective. Ah, yes, yes, so much that yes, I would have loved to see the Riddler from a Nolan perspective. And it's crazy because what? At the same time, I feel the same way that Jim Carrey could have still actually played that Riddler role in a Nolan film, because Jim Carrey, and I've talked about this before, comedic actors and the success that they seem to have in dramas, because when it comes to making movies, especially funny movies, comedies, there's so much that goes into it. It's hard to pull those laughs from people. I think people who make comedies or comedians even have a tougher job trying to bring their audience in, be funny, and things like that. It's a really hard thing to do. So if you ask me, and I'm not a filmmaker or anything, I think, just as a film fan, that comedies have got to be some of the hardest to make. And I think that's why we see so many people who came up in the comedy, and just from comedy backgrounds, do really well as dramatic actors. I mean, hell, look at Tom Hanks. I don't know, I'm not sure that he was ever like a stand-up comedian, but he was always in a bunch of funny roles when he was up and coming. And that's, and that translated into being such a great dramatic actor. I think Jim Carrey has managed to do the same, as well as many other actors that are out there. But yes, definitely seeing Riddler from the Nolan perspective would have been absolutely mind-blowing. I would love to see that. But speaking of Tom Hanks, that kind of is going to segue me into the next thing, and the main thing that I wanted to talk about today, and that's Raunchy Films. Are Raunchy Films over with? And I kind of started thinking about this because there's that movie getting ready to premiere at the movie theater this coming weekend, and that's what is it, The Good Boys, or Good Boys maybe, with these adolescents who are basically, they're living in the world just like all of us are, going through life. And it looks like it's one of these raunchy comedies where, they're out there doing things that kids do, and they're out there talking just like kids do in the real world. And some people may not like it, and it's definitely something that's not for everybody. Agreed. Mad says agreed. Bring it a bit more of the number 23 Dark Side. Yeah, that's true. And then, the number 23, I actually thought that was a pretty decent movie. I realize a lot of people don't like it, but then there's even like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Some of these things where he's brought really great dramatic performances out. And a lot of that is due to being able to be funny on screen. I think a lot of comedies really toe the line between being dramas and, something being serious, and being comedic. Like, you can even go and watch what was that one that he was in? Kick Ass 2, where he played I can't remember the character he played, the character's name, but you could see in a lot of that there's times where he's, just being funny and ridiculous, but then in both of those movies, the funny stuff takes a very serious turn. And does that necessarily make it a dark comedy? I'm not so sure. And are dark comedies really that dark, or are they comedies? There's always that fine line. And Demaj, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here, sir. And to me, that's another thing that goes into it. Like I said, these great comedic actors who go on to do these great things in drama. And as I was saying, this movie, The Boys, seems to be like one of these films that is kind of a dying breed out there. It seems like we're seeing less and less of them out there in this world. I think before this movie, The Boys, where it looks like it's going to be a raunchy comedy, I think the last one I really seen before that was it was actually the Blockers last year, but it involved girls as opposed to boys, which I thought was a pretty good play. But to me, it just seemed like it was like super bad, but with girls, a little bit. A little bit. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm sure there's people out there who would say the same thing, like, oh, they just making this movie, the representation and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, let's be honest here. Girls go through all the same things that us guys do, growing up as teenagers and things like that. So I think obviously there's definitely a market out there for having female raunchy films like this as well. And I'm not against any of those coming out to the forefront in the movies, because we need to see more of it. We can get these diverse actors and characters and all this stuff out there, everything that everybody wants, with all of these movies as well, and still make them raunchy, just like this movie The Boys looks like. You could see through the trailers, it looks like it's just a coming of age story where some kids are going through just different things that we all probably went through growing up as kids, whether that's coming into the realization of sexuality and just different things like that, or just, and a lot of it is usually coming through, how would you say, just not being aware, being ignorant to how things really are, not really knowing about the birds and the bees, and you kind of find out the hard way. I think you have a point about raunchy movies. Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club are shocking by today's standards, and that's exactly what I want to get into today's discussion, because I absolutely agree 100%. And are we going to see any more of these films? It seems like it seems like it's been a while since we had one. Like I said, we got The Boys coming out this year. We had Blockers come out. Was that last year when Blockers came out? I'm thinking it might be. It's actually a movie that I own. And I thought it was a pretty decent movie, but again, we could see John Cena still, still has to work up his acting chops. And he's been getting some experience under his belt. He's getting better in his ways. But again, before that, I think the most raunchy thing I had seen was, and it was a cartoon, was the movie Sausage Party, where and my son, he wanted to watch Sausage Party. He was 2 years old, I think. Seeing the trailer for that, he's like, oh, he wanted to watch it. I think may have let him watch it one time too, because he was little. He don't understand all the language and what's going on. But again, I've talked about this before. I don't think just because they don't know what's going on don't mean that they can't pick up on it, because I've never actually went out there and treated my kids like they were stupid as they were children growing up. I never goo goo gagged them. I always talked to them like they knew exactly what I was saying and understood what I was saying. I've always treated them like that, and I think in the long run it pays off. But before that, it seems like it's really becoming a dying breed. I mean, we got movies like Superbad and things like that out there. Movies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and like you're saying, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, Bachelor Party. Are these movies dying? Will we ever see movies like this again? A lot of it, a lot of the signs point to no. That these are some dying films, and that's really a sad and unfortunate thing. And you can even go look at movies like American Pie. People see these movies and they're like, oh my god, like I wouldn't let my kids watch this. I remember when I was growing up, and I guess I was already grown up, but I was younger. Some of my parents' best friends, they had seen the ads um, for American Pie or whatnot, and they actually had let their children watch it, and really didn't have a problem with it. But then they see a movie like Hollywood Nights. Was it Hollywood Nights? And they're like, "Oh my God!" Like, no, or maybe it was they let them see Hollywood Nights, but not American Pie. And I think my mom and my mother and father were even like, "Really? Like, you'll let them watch a Hollywood Nights, but you won't let them watch American Pie." They're essentially the same thing, just from different eras. Because I'm not sure if you've ever seen Hollywood Nights, but it's actually a great movie with, man, a lot of actors in it. But like there's just the raunchy things kind of going on in this movie as well. I remember one of the scenes towards the end. The guy is sitting there in his high school, was it the high school talent contest, where he's sitting there playing his violin and everything, and he's going, sitting there playing, and then he has his hand down his pants, and his pants are unzipped, and he takes his he takes the I'm not even sure what the thing is called, for the violins, but the little thing with the strings that you sit there and play it with, and he takes and he puts his finger through the zipper of his pants, and he holds it with this finger there. And back when when a movie like when that was made, like Hollywood Nights was made, people would see that and be like, oh my god, like that's kind of raunchy and offensive, and it's just funny how things like that come about. And nowadays it seems like, and I don't even think it's necessarily has to do with like a lot of the things that people talk about these days, like with people being offended, the social justice warriors and things like that. I don't necessarily know that that's what's killing these movies so much as the fact that maybe people are starting to be scared to make these types of films due to that backlash. But again, I think these films are something that are something integral to us as human beings, and even kids growing up. I would, unless there's something really bad out there, I'm not sure that I want to limit my kids in the movies that they're going to see. I mean, I took my kids to see Pulp Fiction, the 20th anniversary edition, at the movie theater. And yeah, I know. I'm that parent. I'm a bad parent. I can't help it. But it's just because, when I was growing up, I was exposed to these things. And look at me. I turned out all right. Right? Isn't that what we always say? That's something, to me, that's just an excuse a lot of people use. But I mean, for the most part, I think I have a pretty healthy outlook on a lot of these types of things. Where because if we keep our children sheltered, or even shelter ourselves from some of these kinds of things, it's really doing ourselves and possibly even the world a disservice. And but that by no means that means that you have to watch these movies, that you have to be into them. That's perfectly fine. Not every movie is for everybody. I actually recently seen on this movie, The Boys, that's getting ready to come out. Somebody on Twitter was actually asking. I'm not sure if you guys follow Sean Chandler here on YouTube. He's a movie reviewer, and he's pretty good at doing his movie reviews. He's got a lot of energy. He's pretty upbeat, and he knows his stuff. And you see several movie reviews here on YouTube who are pretty good at that. But he's one of them. And somebody was asking him about if he was gonna do a review of The Boys, and he just came out and said, "No, I'm not gonna do it. just not for me. The same way with the movie Blockers. I'm pretty sure that was last year. It might have been the year before, where he was like, "No, it's just not for me. I'm not going to review these type of movies." Because they're just not something I'm into. And you know what? I absolutely 100% respect that stance that he has there, and not, just saying, like, I'm not going to review it. I'm not into this genre of movies. I'm just not into it. I'm not going to do it. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, as a reviewer, it's kind of like your job to go out there and do that. But again, I'm not going to knock a guy for not going and seeing a movie that he don't want to see and don't want to review. That's perfectly fine. That's his prerogative. But at the same time, I'm not saying that he's actually just completely shutting himself out from everything neither, just because he's not into that, and he knows he's not. So again, I think my hat's off to people like that, who are willing to say, like, yeah, I don't need to. It's kind of like, when I talk a lot here about on the channel is perpetuating things. You know what I mean? If you don't like if you don't like a movie, you don't have to keep talking about it. You don't have to keep beating that dead horse. It's okay to, if you went and happened to see the movie that you didn't like, just say, hey, this movie, I didn't like it. Here's my reasons why. That's it. And then you move on. You don't have to keep perpetuating something out there like that. But like this gentleman right here, Sean Chandler, if he don't want to go see the film because it's just not stuff that he likes, more power to you. You're absolutely under no obligation to go and review or see or watch these films if it's just not what you're into. Matt's Mama Bear says it's the knee-jerk culture. No one wants to poke fun at society. And that's the thing. And I absolutely agree there. And at the same time, I think it's healthy for us to do that. It's perfectly healthy because, for one, I mean, this stuff happens in the in the real world. You know what I mean? There are actually people out, like, I was talking yesterday about representation in movies, and at the same time, while it's important to get accurate portrayals and representation out there when they're doing these movies, it's also important to get the representation and portrayals of people who are actually out there in the world. People who are, maybe portraying these people who are part of the knee-jerk culture, or portraying people in bad stereotypical ways. Like, we do see, if you go through and even watch things like There's Something About Mary, where, Cameron Diaz's character has a brother and he is mentally handicapped, and you can see, obviously, they're playing on stereotypes, and really, I mean, let's face it, they're being mean about people with mental handicaps, okay? And I think it's something that should still be explored. I mean, people are going to take offense, yes. People are always going to take offense to things, and people being offended isn't always necessarily a bad thing, because I'm the type of person, like, sometimes we need to be shook. We need to have somebody slapping us in the face, or somebody throwing water in our face, or something like that, to get us to realize that there are people out there like that. There are people out there who make fun of these things. There are mean people out there who actually have bad intentions, and sometimes that comes to portraying these things in films, even in stereotypical ways. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that the director feels that way, that this actor feels that way, or that anybody laughing at this thinks that some of these people are lesser in our society or anything like that. Because I can tell you, I've seen a lot of people with a lot of handicaps out there that are more able-bodied and more able-minded and have thicker skin and just any of these kind of things, more capable people than people in our society who are functioning adults who don't have these handicaps. And sometimes I think that may be, the funny thing. I think a lot of times just people need to learn to laugh at themselves, to not be so serious all the time. There's a time and a place that you can cut loose, and you can come back, and you can enjoy movies, and you can enjoy some of these different things in this world. And it's just sad to see when we see that some of these movies are falling to the wayside due to some of the outrage and things that are out there. Like, I do understand it. I get it. I get it if you have a daughter or a cousin or a niece or, a mother or, anything like that has some of these handicaps, and you take offense to it. I get that. But at the same time, does that mean that all of these things are done with ill intent? No, not at all. I mean, go back and look at Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder was one of those movies that came out, and I remember there was a lot of people offended when that movie came out. But you can go back Go back and watch that movie. It's just absolute hilarity. I don't think when they made that movie they were necessarily trying to offend anybody. They were really making a movie playing on stereotypical tropes within the movie industry and within our real world. And I think that's the important thing that a lot of people misunderstand when it comes to some of these raunchy comedies and things like that. And it's an absolute shame that they're actually going to be coming to an end. Um, The Last Jedi. Yes. Um, the thing is Dimash, I don't think we'll ever get an American Pie, Porky's, oh yeah, Animal House, or a Tropic Thunder. Yeah, and unfortunately, it. I hate to agree with you there because I do think that you're right, but at the same time, I genuinely hope that you're absolutely 100% wrong. Again, I think these things are I think these kind of films are actually something that are almost like a necessary evil, if you want to call it that, in our society, because like I said, sometimes people need to be shook, sometimes they need to be shocked, sometimes we need to realize, even in these movies when people are doing this, you need to realize that there's actually people out there in the world that are like that actually make fun of these people with these handicaps and different things like that. There are actually people out there who do these raunchy things. A lot of people want to attribute it to toxic masculinity or just toxicity in the first place, but let's face it, man, that there's different strokes for different folks, and there's absolutely no reason why we should limit those things to certain audiences or certain people. There is a market out there for that, and you can see, and that's something I was actually even talking about Friday on the Trailer Park Live, when it comes to indies. Indies in the industry. I think I titled that one "Indies Indie Industry." I was going to title it "Indies Indie Industry," but I thought that was a little too much indies. I don't know. Can there be enough too many indies? I don't know. Let's ask Indiana Jones. But and that's the thing though, is I think that's where there are always going to be, I hear a lot these days about people talking like, oh, Disney's, buying all these franchises. They own everything and they're going to destroy cinema and movies and all this kind of stuff. And while, yeah, sure, they do have control of a lot. They've taken over control of a lot of our beloved franchises, be it Marvel with Marvel Studios, Star Wars, Pixar. Pixar originally wasn't like a Disney thing. It was just like a branch of them. Buena Vista and just different things like that. But they have control of them, and they have certain guidelines that they want to set as a studio and things like that. But that's exactly where indies come in at. Indie filmmakers, indie studios, and things like that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing in comic books. We see the same thing in comic books. Like this one, I just finally got a chance to read. Issue number 2 is coming out this week of Reaver. You can see they have cursing and raunchy things, and they discuss some of those things in these comic books, and that's one of the things, like, we need to make sure that we get out there and support some of these independent films, and that's why it's important that we do this. Making sure that we support some of these things when we're out there and we see them out in the world, because they're not always going to be out there, and if we're not out there supporting them, whether you like them or not, you should at least get out there and support them. Like, you see maybe one of these movies that's out there, you're like, I don't know, give it a chance, and by no means, and speaking of which, I see Demajani here in the chat, is something like he made a video about yesterday, was the Alita Battle Angel, and I probably am being a little bit hypocritical here in this sense, because I still haven't seen Alita Battle Angel, and on its own merits, because I seen the trailers, I was into it at first, and then as time went on, I was kind of like, man, they're losing me here. They're losing me, and I still haven't seen that movie. And hopefully one day I will see that movie, and I may or may not enjoy it. I honestly don't know. But the thing is it's important to get out there and support these things, to let filmmakers know, to let studios know that there is still a demand for these things, and we do still want to see them on screen. And again, that's where these indies come in at. And I think it's very much more important for us to actually get out and see more of these independent films, so we can get more of them. Because if we don't support the indies in the industry, whether that's these independent movies or even these indie studios, they're going to fall by the wayside, because they're not making the money that they need to make. It's not sustainable for them to keep forking out this money to make these movies, and they're not getting anything in return. So again, for me, that's one thing, one reason why, as I was growing up and things like that, I always kind of felt like I want to go out there and see even movies that I may not like or may not necessarily be into. Because for one, you don't know that you like it until you've seen it, and you don't know if you're into it until you've seen it. You know what I mean? And that's, and that's just as me speaking as a film fan. I can tell you one thing. One of, and a lot of people would probably laugh. I know my wife certainly makes fun of me a lot. Is like all these like rom com movies, all these like girly type movies and everything like that. Like I'm into those kind of movies. I like watching those. The movies like the Say Anythings or the just stuff like that that are out there, or not even that. Like God, what's an even more extreme example I could think of? How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, right? How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. That's one of those ones like that's just like the cheesy like chick flick. I'm into chick flicks. Um, I like them, but again, a lot of it comes down to the acting and the actors that are in these movies, the way they're made, just things like that. And it's something I like. But we definitely have to get out there and support these films. Otherwise, they will fall to the wayside without our support. Um, Mads Mulberry whispers, "I haven't seen it yet either." Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's the thing is there's plenty of people out there who haven't. And for me, it lost my interest, so I'm kind of waiting for it to come on to like a Netflix or something like that, or it's probably out at Redbox. I need to get out and watch it. Um, Dimogenai says, "At first I was on the fence with Alita, then I gave it a chance. Once I look into a bit of the background, fast forward, I'm Team Alita." Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with that. And see, and that's the thing is, I'm kind of the same way. I'm on the fence with it, but as far as my feelings, because I'm like, they kind of lost me with like the ads and everything. And it's one of those movies that I will eventually watch. And like I even said in the comments on your video, like I'm sure at some point I'll watch it, and I'll probably, it's one of those movies where you probably end up watching it, and once you watch it, you're kicking yourself saying, why the F didn't I see this movie at the theater on the big screen? There was one that came out not too long ago. I felt the exact same way about, and I can't remember what movie that was, but I was sitting like, oh my God, why didn't I make it to the theater to see this movie? And that, I think that's something important. If there's something that you feel like you may want to see or may not want to see, maybe go see it at the theater anyway. Pick a $2 Tuesday, or well, I don't know if they have $2 Tuesdays anymore, but like a 2 for 2 Tuesday. If you're an AT&T customer, they give you the 2 for Tuesdays. You can take a friend with you, and you can go see the movie. Where I live at, we have the Cinemark, and they do discount Tuesdays where you get to see the movies. I think they're like $7.50 or something like that. I can't remember. They're significantly cheaper than they are normally. And a lot of the times I've got 3 kids, so a lot of times I will take my kids to see those discount Tuesday viewings, because sometimes the theaters are packed on the weekends, sometimes we're busy on the weekends, and sometimes it's just nice to get out and get a discount on some tickets to see them. um, Michelle P says, "I love Alita. I was surprised. I was surprised. It wasn't what I thought it would be." And I'm hoping when I actually watch it, I'm hoping the same thing. I'm hoping I feel the exact same way when it comes down to it. Patriarch of the Sith says, "I'm gonna talk to Fatal J to see where I can, where I can ho yo ho it." Michelle P says, "It'd be." I'm not sure what you mean there, but all right. Matt's Mama Bear says a lot of classic movies became fan favorites after they left the theaters. Patriarch of the, and that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And I think that's kind of like a lot of films out there. Like I know for me, some of the films I absolutely love are like some of those Edgar Wright films. Like God, did he actually do? He did like Shaun of the Dead and things like that. Like those were like I've never seen Shaun of the. I still don't know that I've seen the whole movie. I've seen lots of it, but these kind of movies like with the Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, I absolutely love their movies. And those are a lot of movies that a lot of people they don't get out to the theater to watch them. It's that British comedy, that British humor. A lot of people just don't understand. I know my wife, she's certainly kind of don't get it because like some of the jokes, like because some of the language stuff too, because they talk a little bit different. But a lot of it you can see on screen, and there's just things on screen that you can enjoy. Because I know, for one, that she actually liked Shaun of the Dead. So again, yeah, a lot of those fan favorites, like those cult classics, end up being ones that people didn't see at the theater. And to me, I think that's probably exactly what a movie like Alita is, where it's one of those films like, and by no means did like not a lot of people go see it in the theater, but it could have had a better box office success had more people just decided like, hey, you know what? I'm not really into this, but let's go to the theater and check this movie out and see what it's like. And I'm telling you, I'm one of those people that's in that boat. I didn't go to the theater and see it. I actually even had intentions to. It just never seemed to happen. And again, I still haven't seen it. Patriarch says Alita was so good. I'm giving the Blu-rays for Christmas. Hey, there you go, man. Share what you love. And that's one of the reasons. Certainly, I started my channel here was to share what I love. I know I see a lot of even channels and everything here that I follow here on YouTube, where a lot of them are sharing things that they hate. You know what I mean? They're talking about a lot of things that they hate. But some of them are actually doing it through the lens of the things that they love. Like, for instance, The Last Jedi is one of those films where Star Wars is a franchise that people absolutely love, and then they don't like The Last Jedi, and so they're sharing that, and that's perfectly fine. They don't like it. They're going to let it be known. And the reason they don't like it is because of their love for the films, for the franchise. So I think that's one thing I talk a lot about those kinds of things in the first place is perpetuating that. Like, if you don't like the movie, fine. It just doesn't have to be the topic of every discussion. You don't have to talk about it with all this hate. You can do it talking about the things that you love. And that's one of the things I like about so many of the content creators that I've come across here on YouTube, and some of them that I've even collaborated with, like Drunk 3PO. We do some Black Guys and a Drunk, and that's actually coming up today. If you guys aren't subscribed to Drunk 3PO and haven't ever watched some Black Guys and a Drunk, you should definitely get on that stream tonight. On Drunk 3PO's channels, where it's usually held at, and he's put together this great panel of people who we all have different views on things, be it films and things like that, and just how we enjoy them and how we express our love or distaste of them, or what we don't like about them. So that's the beautiful thing, is that's one of the great things that I've found here on YouTube, is finding these collaborators who are just like that, other creators who are like that, who can creatively express their discontent over a film. If you want to go out there and just foam at the mouth and say you hate this movie over and over, no matter what movie it is, not just like The Last Jedi, but over and over again, it's like, come on, bro. Like, I know you've got more creativeness in your body. Let's see it. I know you've got passion for something more than just hate. And that's one thing I don't like seeing here on YouTube, is we see so much of this hate for this stuff. Like, okay, I get that you hate it, but and you've expressed why, but tell me about something that you love. Can we spread a little bit more love out there in the world? You know what I mean? For the things that we love, and even some of the things we hate. You can talk about something you hate with love. You know what I mean? You can. It's totally possible. And I see other creators out there doing it. And I think that's something that we definitely that Drunk 3PO has definitely nailed on that stream, Some Black Guys and a Drunk. Again, you guys should go check it out. Is the fact that you could see that there's creators out there who are love and passionate about these films and these franchises, but they don't like certain things, how certain things have been handled, and they express their discontent in really good and creative ways, not just I hate it, this sucks, and they're turning red in the face and foaming at the mouth. There's a time and a place for that. Your initial reaction, you want to do that, hell, go right ahead, because that's exactly what and I talk a lot about knee-jerk reactions here on my channel, how I'm just not into them, but not all the time are reactions, bad reactions, knee-jerk reactions. There are people out there, and you can see there are people legitimately out there who don't like some of these films, and and there's a difference. There's a huge difference, again, but it's perpetuating. Do we have to always perpetuate those things? Let's see. But yeah, Patriarch of the Sith. I mean, more power to you, man. Go out there and give out those Blu-rays for Christmas, dude. You got to share what you love with people, and that's the important thing. And I was actually even talking about that too on Demogenize thing, is people kicking down one thing to prop another one up. There are people out there who want to kick down Captain Marvel to prop up Alita Battle Angel, and that's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like Captain Marvel, cool, fine, and you like Alita, great. That's great. But again, I mean, you as well as I have seen other creators out there that do that same thing, but they don't like when that happens to something else that they enjoy. You know what I mean? So, and again, we were talking about hypocrisy on that thing too. People are always going to be hypocritical. There's nothing bad about that. It doesn't inherently affect any of us by people being hypocrites. Just, do they realize that, and it's not that people always need to realize that, but again, yeah, I mean, we need to, we should share those things with other people, with our loved ones, Patriarchs, Michelle P says you'll like it. Okay, admittedly, I need to watch it and give it a chance because again, I've never said the movie sucks or that I don't like it. I haven't seen it, so I can't have a judgment on that either way. I can tell you the one thing that I did like. My initial thoughts when I first wanted to see that movie, Alita, was the fact that it's Robert Rodriguez directing it. He was like one of the first people to come onto the scene using like those high def cameras and then doing of the a lot of like the motion capture and stuff like that in films. He was one of the groundbreakers in doing that, and that's really what kind of drew me to the film. And then as time went on, I kind of got a little more turned off by it. But Patriarch says Shaun of the Dead was an amazing comedy. It is. It's absolutely great, and I feel that way about any of like those Nick Frost and Simon Pegg movies. Is they're genius, especially because I like that. I like that British humor. It's just really great, and it plays well into the comedies that they make. One of the ones that I had that I absolutely love is Hot Fuzz. I freaking love that movie. Hot Fuzz is one of my absolute favorites, along with what is it? The end of the at the world's end, or just the world's end. Absolutely great. That's another one that I love. And there are some funny things that a lot of references I always bring up from that movie, like Robot. Like people being robot, they're whole robots. They kind of, were making pokes at that. It's a funny thing, and I actually I use that term a lot when I hear people talking just about things. When I hear people using copy and paste replies to everything, I'm like, dude, like, bro, you're a robot. You know what I mean? You're just an automaton, really. You're not even worth my time. Not you, but I mean, some of these people aren't even worth my time and acknowledging them in some of their stuff. Demogenai says, speaking of lady flicks, I like Crazy Stupid Love, The Proposal, and Closer. I don't think I've seen Crazy Stupid Love. That's the one. Is that with Kirsten Dunst in that? Kirsten Dunst in that one? I've never seen that one. The Proposal. The Proposal. That's the one with Ryan Reynolds. Am I right on that? Ryan Reynolds? And he is, God, who is his boss in that movie? And they go through, I'm pretty sure I know The Proposal. I thought that was a pretty good one too. And Closer. I don't think I've seen Closer neither. But I definitely do. I'm down with the chick flicks, man. I like them. And if you guys know me, man, I'm one of these people, like, I'm a crier. I'll cry, man. I cry. Hell, I cry. Watch it. I cry. Man, I used to cry all the time watching. What was that stupid TV show? You know what stupid TV show? Undercover Boss. Undercover Boss used to make me bawl like a baby, man. Just because I love seeing humanity in people, and I think that's one of the things that I love. That's if you guys know me here, man, like I try to be objective about a lot of things, but a lot of the reason that is because, like, I love people, man. I love hearing different viewpoints and stuff like that. And, it absolutely pains me. It pains me inside when I see people who just aren't into that kind of stuff, who don't want to know people a little bit better, who just close themselves off completely from other people's point of views, even if it's something they don't agree with. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of that we see coming through by way of politics and things like that, and that's the unfortunate thing. But I think if we could typically rule out somebody's personal politics and stuff like that, because it's going to show through no matter what. But just kind of getting an understanding of people, because like I said, man, I'm a sentimental dude, man, and like I said, I've cried plenty on my show, The Trailer Park Live, man. I don't go back and check out the one from June, was it May 2nd? Don't go watch that one. I'm definitely a sentimental dude, so yeah. Demarjani says, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it tonight. I'm closing for the next 2 Tuesdays. Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that tweet, man. That sucks, dude. And that really does suck, because you're Demarjani. If you guys are here and don't know Demarjani, go to his channel and check him out, dude. Eon is a super cool dude, and very good at inculcating his opinions and things like that, and definitely an integral part of the panel there for some black guys and a drunk. Great dude, man, and great channel. Demarjani says, I'm a Sith. I let the hate flow through me. Yes. Me too, though, man. I'm the same way. Like, like, I'm not one of these extreme people, but there are some things that I'm very extreme about, and I won't back down from my opinions on them. And one of those things is something that we see prevalent in the news right now with this thing of Jeffrey Epstein. I have absolutely no love, no sympathy for people who mean to do harm to children, human traffickers, even, women, children, men. It doesn't matter. If your intent is doing things like this, human trafficking, abusing people in these kinds of ways, I am absolutely 100 set in my stance that I don't think you should be sitting in jail. You should be dead. I you know again, I'm not trying to be political here, but I am just that staunchly against these abusers and people who prey on women, children, and even men as well. Because people can prey on men as well. There are people out there. Obviously, we know there's alpha males, beta males, and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people are preyed on, and it's absolutely wrong. Patriarch says, then LB gonna have to talk more. yeah. Sometimes sometimes LB he gets a little bit quiet, like because people are going on, and he's a great respectful dude, LB, and he's awesome, man. And I think out of all the channels that I follow, like a lot of the people like on that panel, or just a lot of people I follow in general here on YouTube, he's one of the ones I've been following for a longer amount of time. I can't even remember how I stumbled on LB's channel, but I know when I found his channel, I absolutely loved it because I love his point of view, and I love the way he presents himself and the way he talks. Patriarch of the Sith says, second, the reason we have a lot of hate sometimes is because too many stars, producers, showrunners, etc. literally attack and insults their viewing demographic. So yes, we're going to respond with anger. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I mean, we should respond in anger because, I mean, yeah, they for me, it's like they're trying to insult our intelligence is what it is. They're trying to insult our intelligence and our ability to actually think for ourselves and have and form our own opinions, when they're out there just trying to shove it down our throats. I'm definitely against that too. But again, I always still think of it like, one thing that too many people rely on these days, and they're so driven by their emotions, and emotional responses, and you know what, they count on that. And that's something that they use to make you or somebody else look foolish. Is they count on getting invoking that emotional reaction from you, and it's just something I've decided a long time ago. Maybe it wasn't that long ago, that I'm not going to give into is that emotional response. I want to give my sane and rational thoughts. And sometimes you might think that they're emotional, but they typically come from a place of rationality. Like, I had some blowback on Twitter from a video I did about the Victoria Alonso thing when she came out and was talking about the X-Men. I had some people on Twitter attacking me on that stuff too. I'm like, oh, you this is not. I'm like, bro, like, no, go watch my video. I'm not sitting here calling her a bunch of bad names. I'm sitting here merely remarking at the stupidity that, because her comments were, I don't know why people call it the X-Men, because all the it's based on the X-Men. It's based on the X-Men. The title of every single movie that came out is The X-Men. Every single one. Victoria, you know what I mean? So, and I completely went off in that video. But again, I was reacting, but I was still being sane and rational about it. I didn't say anything that was really offensive other than, are you freaking serious? I mean, why do they call it The X-Men? God, like, these are the people that are in charge of our movies. Like, and to me, again, I was being sane and rational in my thing. I mean, I had the time to absorb it, sit here and get on YouTube, open my encoder up, get on YouTube and make the titles and all that stuff. I had all of that there the whole time. I wasn't driven by emotions that whole time. You know what I mean? I was driven by the absolute absurdity of it. Dimaja says, Emma Stone. Emma Stone. What am I missing on Emma Stone? I like Emma Stone. She's a great actress. Dang it, see, and that's what happens when you get behind on these chats. Patriarch says it's called This Is the End. Yes. No, The World's End. The World's End. That's the one I was thinking of. But This Is the End is a good one too. This Is the End is a great one too. That's another one. No, you're already in the hole. Jesus, what a line. Yeah. Yeah, This Is the End is a great one too though. But I was talking about The World's End. That's one where Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and all their friends, they were going around trying to hit all the pubs on, and The World's End was the last one, and they ended up fighting. Yeah. But yeah, no, This Is the End. That's another great one too. That's another great one. Second Street, Sandra Bullock. Yeah. Oh. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. We're talking about the chick flicks up there. Okay. Yeah. Sandra Bullock was the boss in The Proposal. Yes. Yes. Okay. We're getting back on track here. Wookiee Lives Matter. Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for being here. I kind of got a little bit off the subject here, talking about these raunchy movies of the past and why we can't let them die. Demonstrate Closer had Natalie Portman and Julia Roberts. Okay. And that's one I haven't seen. And I like both of those actresses too. So definitely one I need to check out, and it almost makes me wonder if I have seen it. I just don't remember. Demonstrate, thanks for the shout out. Yeah, anytime, man, dude. Like, again, I, I love your channel, man. And again, I love your thoughts and the way you intricate yourself, and that goes with a lot of the people that I've met on YouTube. And there are some I don't interact with as much, but I still watch their videos. And I get this. And I made a post about it the other day. Is I get this a lot because I have not always contrasting views, but I just have a different way of seeing things, and I have a different way of responding to things. And some people, would say, call it trolling or whatnot, but I'm like, no, like I like to. Sometimes I like thought provoking responses. You know what I mean? Something to provoke people. Just the same as these raunchy comedies and stuff like that. Something maybe slap somebody upside the head and be like, okay, hey, like there are other people out here, and just because sometimes when I agree with somebody doesn't mean I agree with them 100%. I do feel there are different avenues, different ways for us to express maybe our discontent, or maybe take a second to look at things from a different point of view. And that's not saying that you have to change your point of view, but it's saying that there are other people out there in this world besides yourself, besides me, that you should take into consideration. And taking them into consideration doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like them, that you have to respect their stance or anything like that. But we should always at least acknowledge other people and their thoughts and their opinions. Acknowledge it. That doesn't mean you have to be accepting and tolerated or anything like that. Hell, I think that's something I was talking about the other day. Acceptance and tolerance is something that is very different. You can tolerate plenty. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. I know. One of my friends, his daughter, a while back came out, and she said she liked girls. She was into girls. She wasn't into guys. Hey, more power to you. But and she was talking about and she's a young lady too. She's very young. She was talking about some of the people in her family who just didn't like it, and she wished they could be supportive and all and stuff like that. And the thing is they can still be supportive and not be accepting. They can be supportive and be tolerant of you and your lifestyle, obviously, but that doesn't mean that they have to accept it. But they can still be supportive in the same sense. And I think a lot of people lose perspective when it comes to that kind of things. And usually the person losing perspective is the person who is in that position where they feel like people don't like them because of their lifestyles and things like that. Most of the people, who feel marginalized are the people who feel that way. Just because somebody can be tolerant and not be accepting, that's just something we have to accept. Ooh, see what I did there? Man. But yeah, Wookiee Lives Matter says, I can't stand Julia Roberts and that gaping pelican mouth. Yeah, and and that's perfectly fine. I can respect that. I'm sure there's some reason that you don't like her or anything like that. I mean, maybe she's come out and talked about politics or anything like that, or I think I always kind of liked and I'm thinking Sandra Bullock here, so I guess I should scrub that, but yeah. Again, I understand what you're saying. Like I said, and I'm sure you have valid reasons for why you don't like Julia Roberts. And again, like I said, there's people out there. I've talked about this. I've got friends and things out there who talk about especially around politics. And we're getting ready to hit the election cycle here. Is oh, I don't care what these Hollywood stars had to say. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, and so a lot of these people live in the same area I live in, Los Angeles County, and I feel like, hey pal, you may not like it, but you better listen up, because these people actually affect you, bro. Like, we live in the same county as them. They are voters in the same county. They affect things here very much. Now, if you live where I used to live in Finney County, Kansas, yeah, no. But any of these Hollywood stars things don't affect me there in my life there. But here, where I live at, they very much do. They very much do affect it. So, I think a lot of, and that's the thing is like you can't always just shut people out. I mean, you could try to, but you bury your head in the sand for so long. What happens when you take your head out of the sand? You know what I mean? And that's one thing, and I've talked about Young Ripper plenty here on the channel. One of the things he always talks about is how like Hollywood and everything like that, want to like push their agendas is through the arts. Be it through music, movies, or even art itself. So these are very influential platforms. So we have to be careful. Not only what I mean, not necessarily careful for ourselves because we're adults, but we let our children be exposed to, and that's the hugest thing. If you want to make effective change, that's how you got to do it. Is through the arts. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, unless you want to be a politician, and I can honestly tell you how I feel about most politicians, and I'm pretty sure most of us probably feel the same way. But again, yeah, and again, all of this really has to go into the exact same thing we're talking about today. These raunchy comedies out there, you and not even just comedies, but these raunchy movies. Like one of the ones I talked about this before when I was growing up. The movie Heavy Metal. It had a bunch of great music in it, but you go and watch that. There's some raunchy things in it that you probably a lot of people probably wouldn't let their kids see. But I unfortunately grew up at a great time in the world, and that was through the '80s. And people always think that the time that they grew up in was probably the greatest. I'm sure there's probably millennials or things out there right now that probably think that we're living in the best generation ever. In the best times. But I didn't say fortunately I grew up in a time through the '80s when I was exposed to these things. People weren't so like about things, and I got to see some of these great movies growing up. Plus, I had uncles and cousins and things like that who exposed me to them, even like when my parents weren't around, maybe without my parents' approval. But again, the I want to go shooting with Ripa. Yeah, for sure, right? And I actually reached out to him the other day to see if I can get him to come here on my channel one of these days, and maybe we'll talk about some comic books and different things. And just want to just kind of get some things lined up to bring him here onto the channel. But again. The that's something like these raunchy comedies. They are kind of there's something that I think are unnecessary, for some people evil. They're unnecessary evil in this world because they fill that void, like what do we get? What do we get if we don't get any of these raunchy comedies anymore? It's just like the thing like with westerns, it seems like we don't get many westerns anymore, you know what? And my father, he loved westerns, so I was exposed to a lot of westerns when I was growing up, and watch movies nowadays, you see some of these westerns, it's like, man, like westerns are like a dead thing nowadays, but that's absolutely sad because they shouldn't be. Some of the great westerns I grew up with, man. Take a Pale Rider. Like Clint Eastwood. Man, that was absolutely great. Go look at any of these John Wayne movies, man. Just great stuff, great cinema, great movies. Great movie making. And unfortunately, the same thing is happening to some of these raunchy comedies. And these raunchy comedies, they serve a purpose still. They serve a purpose, and maybe seeing a younger audience, a younger generation, seeing them and being exposed to these things that are out there in the outside world. Because I mean, if you're not going to have these talks with your children or whatnot about the birds and the bees and things like that, there's still these movies out there, and it's probably not the best avenue, but they explore those kinds of things, and let you into a little bit more of the real world, because that's the real world that we live in. You think your kids are angels at school? You think everybody they go to school with is angels, and they're not talking about these things and acting this way? I mean, if you believe that, you're dead wrong. I mean, you obviously don't remember what it's like to grow up as a child, going through school and the things that you were exposed to, and maybe you didn't go through them, and good for you, or should I say maybe even bad for you, because you weren't exposed to some of these kinds of things as you were growing up. But again, I think while we see a lot of these raunchy kind of films falling by the wayside, like I said, we've gone through quite a list of them. Pretty in Pink, Breakfast Club, Bachelor Party, Animal House, Hollywood Nights, like I mentioned, American Pie, Porky's, Super Bad, even Pineapple Express. Some of these raunchy kind of coming of age films, I think they're always going to be necessary out there, and and that's the thing, and that's where some of these these smaller like be it like comic books, but like these indie films and things like that, that's where they come into play. And that's definitely one of the things like we need to get out there and make sure that we still support movies like the Good Boys getting ready to come out, so we can still let these studios, let these people know that these are still movies that we care about, these are still movies that we want to see, and so they don't fall to the wayside, because I think it's absolutely they were a huge part of my life growing up, and shouldn't they be a huge part of all of our lives growing up? Because within these movies, it's not just raunchy comedy that we're seeing. We're seeing people actually, a lot of these movies actually have profound messages in them, where people, they're looking, they make that pact to have sex before they graduate high school, and what's so wrong with that? There's nothing toxic about that. It's not toxic masculinity. That's what people do. People make those kind of pacts. That's the real world we live in. So to not expose yourself or even your kids to that is, I mean, it just, to me, it just seems wrong. I mean, that's the world we live in. We can't keep our eyes close to these things, and that's definitely, it, something that's important. If these these smaller studios and these indie films aren't getting that kind of exposure, aren't getting that kind of money, I mean, they will eventually die out. I mean, look at the westerns. Like I was saying, it seems like there for a while they were dead, but there's slowly making a comeback. We see some westerns still out there being made, but again, they're still not the same westerns that I grew up with as a kid. I mean, I can't remember what that recent one was that I watched. Oh man, who was in that? Christian Bale was in it. I want to say Kate Blanchett was in it as well. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was a pretty good one. Or there was a recent one with Kurt Russell, Bone Tomahawk. Slow burn of a movie, but it's not exactly your typical kind of western neither. But just a lot of these things, we definitely need to get out and help support them. Demarjani says these stars are American citizens. They have a right to speak their minds. They would keep them out of their work. Yeah, right. And I agree there. And at the same time, I feel like it's probably an important part of their work too. I mean, getting different viewpoints out there, the agenda-driven stuff that we see in Hollywood, I'm not necessarily against it. The thing I will say is, if you're, and I was talking about this in my comic book review that actually just dropped this morning, was if you're writing that stuff out there and you're putting it out there, and you're not. Know that there are certain people out there who aren't going to watch your movie for that reason. And there are people out there who are watching your movie for that reason. Know that you're making something that's very niche and that is either going to be, it's probably going to be well received by the people who like it, who it's for, and not so well received by the people who it's not. And then there's probably people out there, like a lot of us who are rational thinking people who may just watch these movies and extract what we can out of them and say like, okay, like, I don't like what this movie is doing, but there are certain elements in here that I think are something that should be talked about. And not necessarily through the context of the movie, but maybe through the context of our real world lives. So, I mean, again, while they, I think there's a time and a place for it. And the thing is, should it be in our MCU? Should it be in the Marvel Studios movies? Should it be in Star Wars? No. No, and I'm not going to say it through the scope of, these things are supposed to be escapist media, it's things for us to kind of get out and relax. No, that's not it at all. Because you can even do these things in this escapist media. The thing is you do it subtly. It don't have to be so on the nose. You know what I mean? Like all that political garbage that they put in The Last Jedi, you can do that in The Last Jedi without making it like it's not even a parallel, without making it based on the real world. You put it in the story. You let the story do that storytelling. You don't just have you don't just have Rose and Finn show up to this world, to this planet that's obviously full of Republicans, right? Because they're bad people, these Republicans, and because this is they're out there just making money, and that's all that they're about. They don't really care how it affects society. That kind of just so on the nose crap just doesn't go there. You let everything that was said, you can let all those things happen in the movie without being so obvious about it, without having to be so on the nose. I mean, they put it so on the nose that they're going to go blind, you know what I mean? And it's actually blinding and so in your face that's what makes you see it, and you're just like, ugh, 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 and for me, and I'm talking enough about The Last Jedi because Like and I've talked to enough about it at the same time. It's a movie, like, I like the movie, but is it a great movie? No, there's far more things in that movie that I don't like than I do like. But like for me, like it kind of lost me at the very beginning. I knew it was going to be a different movie at the very beginning. Right at the very beginning, we see Poe and just his smart aleck humor and everything. That whole witty banter that he has there when he's showing up on the at the dreadnought, and they're getting ready to attack it and everything. That's just not the kind of comedy I see in Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's just not what I'm used to seeing in Star Wars. And I remember even seeing it the very first time at the movie theater. It was like a slap across the face. Like, okay, this is obviously going to be something different. And it took me out of the movie there at the very beginning of the movie. Like, I was laughing, but I was still sitting there kind of like, heh, heh, heh. Like, is this like an episode of like Parks and Rec or something? Is this like what's going on here? Did I come here to watch The Office or Star Wars? Um, and yeah, so yeah, I definitely hear what you say. I think when they do it in their work, it needs to be something that's crafted. Maybe the whole movie is based around that. Like that's like there's no false advertising there. Like that you're gonna get that out of this movie, and then maybe you might be more reluctant to go see it, or you might actually be like, okay, I know what this movie's about. I know what they're gonna present me with, and I'm gonna go see it so I can see exactly what they're saying. I think there's a lot to be said for the way something is advertised in the way it should be, and I think that's one of the huge failings of I mean, one of the huge failings. I said one of the huge failings of The Last Jedi is they put that in there and it's not advertised as that, because that's not what Star Wars is. That's not what Star Wars is. And then you go and you just sit there and you didn't even inject that into the movie. You saturated that in the movie. Like you treated that thing like it was Thanksgiving turkey, and you're sitting there basting the whole movie, and just all of that political crap. That's not Star Wars. Star Wars, yes, it is political. Yes, it does draw a lot of those lines, but it's not so obvious and so on the nose. You can go back and watch all the movies. You see all the subtleties there, but they don't have to come outright and say it. And I think that's a huge thing when it comes to these types of movies. Eastwood, yeah, man, Clint Eastwood, dude, classic. And you know what? And even in his films, I think there was one he just came out with. I never watched Jersey Boys, but there was another one he recently came out with that I never got a chance to see neither. Man, what was that latest one? The Mule. I didn't get a chance to watch that one. But regardless, it's an Eastwood movie, and I'm sure it'd be good. Wookie Lives Matter says there are raunchy comedies. There are raunchy comedies. They're just female led and lame now. And see, and that's the thing is, I get what you're saying. There are raunchy comedies out there, and I have no problem with them being female led. Like Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids was actually a brilliant movie. I love that movie. That movie's absolute hilarity. But then you go and you turn around and you see like pretty much that same cast that went through, and uh, Paul Feig went out there and completely destroyed the Ghostbusters franchise with that movie, with like a lot of these same actresses who are great actors, who are great comedians. Man, they just took he just took that plane and just flew it straight into the mountain. And to me, I watched that Ghostbusters movie, Ghostbusters 2016, Answer the Call, and like I remember in theaters, I watched it. I was like, it's funny. It's a pretty funny movie. It's not bad, but it's not a Ghostbusters movie. It's not a good Ghostbusters movie. If you'd have called it something else, I mean, people would have said that it's a rip off Ghostbusters, but it could have been funny and it could have probably found success. But you go out there and you do just what you do like that. It's just bad. And I'll tell you one of the things that I think is huge about that when you're talking about the raunchy comedies and the female led thing is one of the huge people in that movie too is oh man, why did I all of a sudden forget her name? Um, Melissa McCarthy. She's obviously in both of these movies, and Melissa McCarthy at times is absolutely hilarious. But then if you go watch any of the movies that she's made with her husband Ben Falcone, they're not even close to funny. Like I watched a couple of them, and I'm like, oh, this is like, it's so close to funny, but then it just drops off. It's just like, ugh, and not due to the comedy itself, because sometimes I've seen in like one of the movies, like they put so much serious stuff in there. There was such a bad balance of dramatic and comedy that it was like oh ha ha and it just takes you right out of the movie. You're in the middle of laughing, and then all of a sudden it takes you out. It's like, you can put profound messages in movies without having to ruin the comedy in them. And that's the thing about a lot of these old raunchy comedies is you get some of those profound messages through all of that grotesque humor. And unfortunately, we just don't see enough of it in films these days. And again, I think a lot of it is because people are scared to make those movies. And I'm glad that there are people out there who still are willing to make these movies and take that risk. There should always be those studios, those directors, producers, and stuff out there willing to take that risk. Because as well as I do, especially if you're here on my channel, as well as I do, that there's still a market out there for it. People still want to see these movies. Just because we hear a whole lot of loud voices out there who are against seeing these kinds of things on screen and wanting to hear them or anything like that and talking about toxic masculinity and stuff, there's still a market out there for it. There's still a market out there for it. And, people want to talk about the same kind of things like, oh, porn and stuff like that. Okay, like I get it. You want to talk about porn, women being objectified. Women are huge in porn. They're huge. A lot of them are running the industry. Jill Kelly, you ever heard of her? Yeah. She was, I believe she's probably still ahead of one of the studios out there that makes porn. And, she's a producer and stuff of these things. Yeah, they're objectifying women, but they're objectifying themselves. They're making money. You think they care? Hell no, they don't care. And that's the thing, is that's where people need to learn that there's a market for it. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean that they should make these movies and other people shouldn't be out there able to enjoy them without being called a toxic male and it being a bad thing. This is the world we live in. You just got to deal with that. You know what I mean? There are raunchy. Okay. Wookie Lives Matter says there was a flop about girls losing their virginity at prom and the parents' efforts to stop it. You know what? Yeah, I think that was a flop at the theater. But I actually own that movie. I bought that movie. I didn't see it at the theaters. Part of why. But then I'm one of those people like I see it was coming on Vudu and I'm like, well, I'll just order it. I just bought it because other than that I'm gonna go spend $1 4 months from now going to Redbox and maybe I'll like it and there's something I enjoy about it and then I'm gonna have to go spend that much more money to just own the movie. But again, it was a flop. And I thought the movie itself was pretty well done. I mean, it was pretty funny. I mean, it's not the best, like, raunchy kind of comedy out there, but there were definitely things about it that I like in those senses. And I like the fact that it was about the girls as opposed to the boys. To me, it was like female super bad, but not as funny. But again, I thought it was a decent movie, and I don't have any problem with it being female led or anything like that, being about girls, because girls go through the same things that guys do. They go through the exact same thing. You think, just like American Pie, you think there's not girls out there who have sex packs to lose their virginity before the end of high school and stuff like that, before they graduate? Sure there is. I mean, to sit there and actually rule out the fact that women are just as much like men as men are is absolutely absurd to me. And that's why I think these movies, they have a place. And unfortunately, maybe some of the pushback on these is from parents who have kids, like myself, but not like myself, who are like, ew, I don't want my kids exposed to that. Ew, that's so real world for me. No, you make me sick, people. Shellback, welcome to the stream, man. Thank you for being here. Hill, the best bald bro on the internet. Thank you. Yeah, and actually, I can feel like I'm actually getting a little bit hairy here. Maybe I need to go and take care of that. Like getting all that hair, and how, like shaving, man. It's a task, bro. And believe me, I'm not one of these dudes. Like I would be one of these dudes out there with like, if I could actually grow hair like right here. I would have long hair. My hair would be longer than my daughter's hair, man. It'd be down to my ass, dude. I'm a metal person, bro. I love heavy metal music, and my shit would be like, I have no problem with growing like a beard or anything like that. But for me, it always looks like a little bit. For me, my particular looks, I think it looks a little bit funny seeing, like the beard or the goatee with my bald head and everything, and I'm just not so into it, and which is really kind of funny because I'm like a hairy dude. Like my hair, I'm not losing hair. It's migrating down my neck. It's going from here back here. So, but yeah. Matter of fact, I can't even find any old pictures because I'm not really a big picture taker, which is funny because I'm doing videos now. But I used to do my hair like Wolverine because like I'm hairy. Like this stuff grows in pretty good and thick. I used to do the whole mutton chops. Used to take and style my hair up just like Wolverine. I love it, man. I love being a hairy ass dude, man. freaking hairy dudes, man. Love it. But I also love being bald too. And I'm actually lucky that I actually have a well-shaped head so I can pull off the bald look, cuz I used to have a manager. He had a peanut-shaped head, and we used to not necessarily make fun of him about it like he was a turd or anything, but we used to laugh cuz he had a peanut-shaped head, and I'm like, "Ooh, man," or you see some of these people that have all like just like all the, oh man, I'm not making fun of anybody here. Some people just don't have well-shaped heads, man, and I feel bad for them, especially if they're going bald like me. And I'm not necessarily sure that I'm going bald. I mean, I think it receded so much, but I've noticed since as far back as it's gone, it hasn't really got much worse. I mean, maybe a little bit through here, but it's like it got thin to a point, and then it just stopped. Like the worst thing in the world. Like, couldn't you just like at least go all the way so I don't even have to shave at least? Crap, man. Razors are expensive. I don't care if you are part of Dollar Shave Club. But again, Shellback, thank you so much for being here, man. Appreciate it, and I hope you're doing well with your schooling. If you guys haven't checked out Shellback's channel, go and check out his channel, man. He did a video a while back where he was talking about he's wanting to go back to school and for counseling and things like that, to go out there and help some vets out there, other veterans, and he is a veteran himself. And again, sir, thank you for your service. But he wants to go out there and help vets, who are out there, not even just homeless vets, but people who need people to talk to. And me, I think that's a very noble thing, man. Like, I don't really want to get too into that because, man. What you're doing is good, man. It's noble stuff, dude. And because there's people out there. People need people to talk to, man. And I think, and that's just for any situation. There's a lot of times we need an outside source, somebody who's not necessarily close to us or who knows us so well, so we can get like some outside input. When it comes to those kinds of things, because if you talk to somebody about it, I mean, they know you and they kind of know your situation, just different things like that. So it's not always the input that you need, and man, whew, totally didn't mean to go there, man. But what you're doing is a freaking great thing, dude. We need more of that in this world. People who want to go out there, help better themselves by helping other people, man. And what you're doing is some noble shit, dude. I fucking hats off to you. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I hope you're doing well in your schooling and everything, though. Getting ready to go through for some of that, because we need more of that in this world. Somebody who's out there willing to, and because as far as I remember, you're not out there to do it for a job, for money, to be getting riches or even getting praise like I'm trying to give you here, man. We definitely need more of that stuff out there, man. In case you can't tell, I'm actually, it warms my heart to know that there's people out there doing that, because I know, like, for me, like, I'm always an eerie to talk to. I couldn't go through the schooling or anything to do all that. I'm just not really into that, but I definitely read a lot of books. I continue I dropped out of high school, man. I did, and I never went and got my GED or anything like that. But I've always continued my schooling in finding the subjects that I like and I'm passionate about. I go out and read books on them, and I'm definitely not a great resource for anything, especially in some of the things that you're wanting to go out there and do. But one thing I definitely do is, that's one of the reasons I always try to be objective, is hear people out, and process how I feel about something, and let somebody know my perspective about it. Not too long ago I was in I get to go into a lot of salons, see a lot of great men and women out there in the world, and came across somebody who was having a pretty rough day, having pretty rough year. Cancer had pretty much become a huge part of their lives, through her husband, through her friend, and even her friend's daughter, and things like that. And actually got a chance to actually just reach out and have a conversation with somebody there in this at the salon. And I'm sitting there in tears, she's in tears, like all the other ladies that are sitting there, we're all in tears. I'm like leaving, I'm just like I'm leaving with my cart of snacks and stuff, leaving, crying as I'm leaving the place, because I felt good. I felt good about myself, being able to just be there and be a listening ear, and maybe just offer my point of view on something. And again, man, my hat's off to you, dude. I highly respect, not even great, I highly respect what you're doing out there, bro. Good stuff, man. Absolutely good stuff. Yeah, I can't even say enough good things about what you're doing. I can't. There's just no way for me to do it. I don't even think I have the vocabulary to be able to express that. And that's probably why you see tears coming out my eyes, because that's where it hits me, man, and right in the heart, dude. Like, and I was talking about this earlier, dude. Like, I'm a people person, dude. I love people. I don't care if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, if you have different thoughts or different things like that about you. Like, man, I love people, and it hurts me to see people in pain, people struggling, and things like that. And at the same time, I honestly don't have a whole lot of sympathy for people at times too, and that's certain people. But again, great stuff you're doing, man. Great stuff you're doing. I'm Michelle P. Check out my channel if you love metal. I will. You know, as a matter of fact, I'll make sure that I'm not going to shut this down so I can get on there and check you out, Michelle P. I'm not sure who you are, but I'm definitely going to take that chance to go out and check out your channel and hopefully get to know you a little bit more. But again, thank you all so much for being here today. Make sure you guys tune in to some Black Guys and a Drunk over on Drunk 3PO's channel later this afternoon. It's going to be a great time. Actually, I guess for most of it's going to be evening. For me, it's late afternoon. It'll be 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're out on the East Coast. But you guys should definitely get in there and check that out. We get in and talk a lot about current issues and just things like that. Always a good time. And if you're not already, please make sure you're subscribed and click the little bell so you get notifications anytime I've uploaded new content or anytime I plan on doing a live video. I have been doing this video here, these morning movie chats, just about every day throughout the week for the past couple weeks, and I do appreciate every single one of you stopping by. Also, check down in the description. There's a link for my Patreon. Where you can go and support this channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. I'm actually working on wanting to get some things together exclusively for my Patreon members. I actually released a video on there last week that actually just dropped this morning. I believe I put that out there for my Patreon members to check out about a week ahead of time. And again, thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel today. If you're not already, like I said, please make sure you're subscribed and make sure you tune in tomorrow, because I'm going to be doing this morning movie chat as well as going over my comic book pull list as well. That video will be dropping tomorrow. You all have a very good day. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next video. Later. Oh, man. Later.